Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. You are now listening to the Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's grow!
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Adam McChesney, and I want to thank you for being here. If you're listening, please be sure to subscribe to the show and leave us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. We would love for you to share this on social media by tagging me and our guests. And this way, we can get this incredible content out to more people. Today, we have another amazing in-person episode. Always love these in-person episodes. And this is somebody I've been following for the last few months. Earlier this year, he became a client of ours, and then we got on a phone call, and actually a couple different phone calls. We were talking back and forth, and I don't know if it was for 45 minutes or an hour, but had a really good conversation about business, life, entrepreneurship. So I wanted to bring in him. I'm excited to get to know him better, but for you as the audience, would love to have you guys gain some of his knowledge about business, life, and his journey. So today's guest is Brandon Bowlby. He is the owner of BRS Painting here in St. Louis. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Awesome. Thanks, Adam. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate it. And I know we got to talking a little bit about kind of all the different things you have going on, a little bit about your background, but if you wouldn't mind sharing that for the audience.
All right. Yeah. Well, I started BRS Custom Painting back in 2009. Okay. So right after, I got laid off in the middle of the summer. Mm-hmm. So I called up someone I did side work with. And
what were you doing before that?
I was painting.
Okay, painting.
Painting. So she pretty much told me, hey, why don't you start your own company? Mm-hmm. So within 2 weeks, I had everything set up, and I was off to the races. Mm-hmm. So now we recently just rebranded to just get rid of the custom, make it BRS Painting, and it's been absolutely fun since the pandemic. So we're just going straight up. So it's been fantastic. Awesome. So we specialize in interior, exterior painting and staining, cabinet painting, with residential repaints, like commercial and new construction.
Awesome. And how big of a team do you guys have?
We currently have 6. Yep. We are looking for 2 more.
Okay.
And we're hiring going into winter.
Yeah, that's a good problem to have.
It's a great problem to have.
Yeah. And so you talk about, having worked for somebody else in the painting space and going and start your own thing. Talk us through, like you mentioned, in 2 weeks, I was just like ready to go. What were you feeling and experiencing during that?
Yeah. So awesome. It was great. It was a one-man band. Yeah. I came from the previous company that laid me off was new construction. Okay. And then I had 4 years of mostly residential repainting. In there, I did some industrial painting, things like that. But the feeling I had was I'm finally paying my bills. Yeah. And I didn't have to work. I think I made what I needed to live to sustain my life. I made in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So I spent 2 weeks in the field and then 2 weeks trying to find new clients. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then, so that was 14 years ago. Yeah. It was a little rough being an early entrepreneur because you think you know it all. Yeah, of course. You don't know anything. Oh, yeah. You really don't. Yeah. So I think I've gained most knowledge probably in the last 4 years is where I've actually seen my mindset and everything change. Mm-hmm.
What specifically in the last 4 years what did you do differently than maybe the first 10?
Lowering my expectations of other people around me and working on their strong suits, or leveraging their strong suits and working on their shortcomings. Yep. Really identifying that, analyzing it, breaking it down, evaluating that person, and really leveraging them for their strong suits because I can't expect everyone to be like me. Yeah. And it was the most frustrating things in the world. So and celebrating. I never celebrated anything. Yeah. Nothing was a win. Yep. It was always, like, oh yeah, I got this big job. Now I got to get it done. Yeah. There was no celebrating that big ticket item. It was always about the work. Yeah. So,
and I think I'm assuming you probably had some experiences in the first 10 where you're like, man, I really did expect the world of people. I expected people to do that. And like what's second nature to us, you have to teach that person. You have to put an SOP in place. You have to actually train them as if they have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. Someone always told me train them to be a business owner. I'm like, well, you can't train everyone to be a business owner. So you got to just plug and play. Like if I just need someone to show up consistently every day, that's what I need for that time. I don't need them to be a crew leader. I don't need them to manage the job. I need them to show up, be polite, dressed well. I mean, we get paint all over ourselves, but I mean, hey, Brandon, I need a new shirt or buy new pants every now and then or whatever. I need them looking, that's the type of person I'm looking for.
You need them
already
to hold
got
the standard.
Yeah. Just hold the standard and just, build a culture. And that's what I've really been working on these last 4 years is trying to build a culture that people want to come to work. It's painting.
Yeah. It's very tough to do in the, we work almost exclusively with contractors, and everybody's trying to build that culture and make, the things that maybe aren't sexy, and have people that are, again, treating it as their own business, or at least having the mindset of the business owner. It's tough to do. But I also think what you said about celebrating the wins, like that's something I struggle with as well. Like I just will get something done. And as you mentioned, be like, okay, well, what do I have to do next? And how do I get this completed? And even just celebrating those small wins goes a long way just for like the self positivity of being like, man, dude, like I understand I got kicked in the nuts this week 10 different times, but look at all the good that actually did happen as well.
And really, so what really helped me get out of that mindset was I started celebrating the little wins for the guys.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And really bragging about how well they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. So that really kind of allowed me. And then they would tell me I was doing a good job, which is super weird.
Yeah.
When an employee is like, hey, boss man, good job on this one. I'm like, cool.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks so much. So that's pretty much what helped me get out of that mindset. It was the crew, the people you surround yourself with, you know?
That's awesome. I know it's especially been tough, since the pandemic, especially as well as keeping people consistent in the trades and doing all of those things. So are there some creative things that you're doing to both build that culture and then, recruit, train, hire the right people?
Yeah. So I have a young team. I'm the oldest person. I'm 39 years old. I'm the oldest person that works for me. And what I've found with the younger generation is you've got to give them some and the way I do it is I take a little bit of personal interest in what they want to do. Right.
Yeah.
So I'll ask them like, what are your personal goals? One of them's like, I want to go, shoot an elk in Wyoming. I'm like, how can I help this person do that?
Yeah.
Give them time of when that hunting season's coming up. I'm like, hey, you doing this, going out there, or even doing some research online and passing it on, having a little bit of interest in their personal stuff, because it's not a glorified job, So how can I, help you use this to promote what you want to do personally?
Yeah.
Another employee wants to build a house. Here's a list of vendors that we've used. Here's the builders we use. There's, give them as much as I possibly can, and show that I have interest in them, succeeding outside of BRS. Plus, also succeed within.
Of course, I always talk about like helping your employees see where they fit into your organization within the vision of the company, but that plays a huge role. And I think a lot of times people will go to, okay, I'll start to do one-on-ones with them, and I'll start to ask them what it is that they want to do and what they want to get out of working here, right? But they don't connect the loop. They don't have the feedback like what you're talking about, where you're like, no, I'm going to research and figure out like where they could go do this in Wyoming, or here's the list of vendors for the house. But then you're like holding them accountable. Hey, it's hunting season coming up. Are you going to take off to go do that? And then it's like this whole, they're like, man, Brandon cares.
Yeah.
Like, and that I think is a lost art when it comes to entrepreneurship.
Oh, especially in the trades.
Yeah. Oh,
like they don't care. Like either you're the boss's best friend.
Yeah.
Which I see a lot. I'm like, why in the world would you hire your best friend?
Yeah. No.
I mean, that could, if you guys have any type of rift, that can he can drop morale in minutes.
Oh yeah.
So take a little bit interest in your employees, and also have something. Have those things in place. You gotta walk the talk.
Yeah.
You have to have those things in place, and really let them know like these are our core values. Quality, efficiency. Things like that. Customer service. Those are our 3 qualities, and we have them written out and everywhere. what it means. So I really and don't be afraid to fire people.
Yeah.
Really don't. If they're not working, they're it's a cancer. They can spread. And everyone will start falling off,
Yeah.
And I've had a few employees say, I'm going to go start my own company. That's cool. Tell me what you need.
Yeah.
I'll help you out. I'll give you, the list of things I did to start my business. And that always, if I'm too busy, I can always throw a nugget to them.
Yeah.
In case something fails, they'll come back.
Yeah.
And they'll learn something.
Well, I think it's one of those things where it's like there's different mindsets that are out there, right? a lot of contractors I know, they're always posting on social media. They're like, so-and-so just left me to go start a company. Absolutely don't use this company. And I keep getting screwed over. It's like, well, you could look at it that way, or you could look at it the way of abundance mindset and reciprocity of like, no, you did everything that you could, and they just so happen to decide to go do that. If you treat them the right way on the way out, you're probably going to get something in return. If they're a startup company, they're probably not going to be able to handle everything. You might be able to take some stuff back. You might be able to give some stuff to them. But if it fails, they're going to come right back to you, and you didn't burn that bridge. And I think so many people burn the bridge to be like, no, they used me. It's like, okay, isn't everybody, I mean, you're using them too in a certain degree in order to build your company too. So it's just the mindset I think a lot of people don't have.
Yeah. And a lot of folks, even clients, they have this, they already know what they're getting. They're thinking it's, this guy's going to try to rip me off some way. There's a reputation within the trades. So I kind of feel like I'm on a mission to, all right, if you've had a bad experience with someone in the trades, let me show you what a real experience should be. So I've been really, really working on that. Really working on that.
Love it.
So from the start of initial phone call till us sending a thank you letter at the end of the project. It's all listed in there, step by step to what we do.
That's awesome.
And I share that with every one of my employees. Like, this is how much we care. You have to care here. If this is just a job, maybe you shouldn't be here,
Well, I think it goes back to setting expectations for both employees and also for clients and prospects and things like that. It's like, hey, this is how we do things. I know you might be accustomed to something else, but I want to set those expectations, and then at each point in the process, reset those expectations, meet and exceed them. And then you're like, okay, gosh, like that's the elevated customer experience that people are like, wow. And then they start to rave you. They leave you reviews. They refer you to their friends. They post about you on social media.
I don't like getting clients from social media.
Well, yeah, that's a whole other topic of conversation. Usually people that are, looking for free, cheap, or getting 17 different quotes.
Never aggregate. I've never used it as an aggregate. So mostly it's, obviously I'm a client of yours. That's really helped out. And then mostly just working on your current book. You got to build that current book or build a book and then leverage that, with, we've had a lot of success lately with our email marketing.
Okay. Yeah.
And not making it about painting. Yeah. Just making it about recipes and topical, and then having like a tool of the month. Yeah. And the list of all of them. It's been.
Well, I think it's one of those things that, again, most paint contractors probably aren't doing that. So when you look at that as well, is like, how do you be different? And then how do you also deliver that experience and have that brand behind it as well? It's like you're thinking outside of the box to be able to get exposure. And people are a lot more likely to read consistent stuff that you guys are putting out about having nothing to do with painting than just a bunch of painting stuff.
Oh, yeah. So know your audience. Yeah. So basically know your audience. The majority of my business come from women, and that's the biggest thing, is just knowing how to tailor your advertising towards them. And with the email marketing, things like that was already written down. That was written down 10 years ago. We finally just got to it. And there's stuff we plan on doing later that we're not getting to because we just don't have the time. You don't have the staff. You have to build these things out. So at the beginning, back then, these things were already in the plan. It just took a long time to get there.
Execution and like knocking it out and doing all those things.
Just really it boils down to time. Time building, just keep building it. That's a future project. It's on the burner. We just need to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. No, 100%. I deal and feel a lot of what you're saying, as I think most entrepreneurs do. I kind of want to get into, some ingredients, like we call it on the Entrepreneur Podcast, about like what has made you successful. I know you talked about some of the things of just like how you've grown with experience and probably maturity as an entrepreneur, but like if you had to pinpoint 3 things that you're like, all right, this is the keys to success, what would those be?
Well, putting the right person in the right seat.
Okay.
That's a learning lesson. You always got to do it. Lowering your expectations of that said person and leveraging what they're good at. That's probably another one. That was a big lesson for me, and then just hard work. And I always tell people, like, I'm kind of too dumb to fail. Because if I don't take the failures as hard as you think, I just kind of keep going at it. I know persistence is probably the what personally is what was made me successful. Not only just in my my work life, but my marriage with my children, that's what makes me successful, is how persistent I am. And I know that, if I set that goal, as long as it's a little bit every day, just a little bit every day, I'll get there eventually.
Love that. And so I know you mentioned, family and marriage and all those stuff. I always love talking with entrepreneurs about how to balance those things, especially as, I'm a father now of a month-year-old. So, or not a month-year-old, but a month-old child.
Yeah.
Always looking to get some nuggets and pieces of advice. But how was that transition? Because I think entrepreneurs, especially when they're starting out and there's those grunt years in business where it's like, I always call it like the seasons, right? Where it's like, man, no, this business just needs me, and I need that for my family, but also my family needs me. So how have you managed that, and how has that evolved over time?
So early on, it was 14-hour days, hustle. If I didn't have the wife that I have, we'd be divorced at that point, because I wasn't an entrepreneur when he got married. I've been married 16 years and I had 4 children.
Yep.
Okay. It has been a struggle. She knows that I need certain things, and I know she needs certain things. So really just break it down to communication. It has to be communicated. Everything has to be communicated. Everything has to be laid out. I'm a planner. She's not. There's play to your strengths. I'd say communication is probably the biggest thing in the world, and just not getting jealous of each other, and having confidence in each other. I think she brings a lot of confidence to the table,
Good.
So when I start crying or whining, she tells me to shut up, get back to
My
work.
wife tells me the same thing. I think the communication is definitely key, and it's something I've worked on, really over the last couple of years, but especially over the last couple of months, just bringing a child into the world. And I think it's super interesting that you said, when you guys first got married, you weren't an entrepreneur. And I was the same way. I was working in corporate America, but even when we first started dating in 2015, I was living in my mom's basement, just trying to make something happen. And then I got into medical device sales, started going, and then I decided to bet it all on myself and entrepreneurship. So it's like, I think it also helps to see the different roller coaster rides and the different peaks and the valleys for them as well. Like my wife, to be able to see that as like, oh, Adam typically figures it out. It's not always easy.
Yeah.
But the people that sometimes are just like not communicating or not having those low points, or at least explaining those low points, that's where tension typically rides, where it's like, I've only known this person as an entrepreneur, and it's like this up and down, up and down, up and down, and we don't know what else to expect.
Oh yeah. I'd say one key factor is she grew up having dinner time. I grew up having dinner time. So it's very important for us to have dinner.
Yeah.
And it has to be sit down at the kitchen table.
Love
All
that.
of us sitting there. We've actually introduced these silly icebreaker question cards. So there's always something we talk about.
Yeah.
No electronics.
Yep.
So,
Awesome. Very cool. And how old are your kids?
Liam turns 14. Jonas is 11. Beckett is 8, and Hollis is 5.
Okay.
So
awesome.
yeah, they're spread out. So just great. It's absolutely fantastic. We'd still be having children.
Yeah.
But they're a little expensive.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I can only imagine. I'm just on kid number 1 here a month in, so I'll be definitely experiencing a lot of that soon.
Yeah, the entrepreneurship, like my wife didn't. She's a stay-at-home mom now. She was when we had our youngest. It just didn't make sense. She always wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. So I realized her dream of, she just wants to stay at home, and society says she doesn't have value in that. And it's so much value.
Oh yeah,
there's so much value in that.
Yeah.
So, and that's what she wanted. She wanted to be a mother.
Yeah,
and that's and I'm glad I can help her accomplish that goal.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, I love that, and I appreciate you sharing some of that stuff on the personal side as well. Would love to know, like, if you were talking to an entrepreneur and you're like, hey, whether they're just getting started or they've been doing this for a long time and they're seeking advice, what's one lesson that you're like, hey, if you can follow this, it'll save you years worth of mistakes. You won't want to just, quit, but like, what would that one lesson be?
Get your finances right first. That's the only thing that's really saved me. Never live outside your means. I always think it's hilarious when I see a new truck wrapped. I'm like, and I talk to him like, oh, how long you guys been in business? 6 months. Yeah. And I'm like, all right. And you've already got a lifted truck and it's wrapped.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a $90,000 vehicle, $3,000 wrap with,
Yeah.
and you're spending what? You're a salesman, so $600 to $800 a month in gas.
Yeah.
Like that's where my mind goes.
Oh yeah.
Right.
That's where my mind goes too.
You know, so it's really lower that bottom dollar as much as you possibly can and add value to your client. And that's how you can add value. You know, if you're struggling to find work or you're bidding out or however you're managing that, the way to really gain traction is keeping it low at first.
Yeah.
You know, keep that monthly low.
Yeah. Well, I think especially as well as like there's a lot of people that get into. I mean, I was that way. Like I thought revenue was profit. You know, like
revenue is not profit.
Yeah, it's not even close. But
and you get paid last.
Yeah, you get paid last, and so like you start to do it, and especially like a lot of in the contracting spaces, a lot of them typically are somebody that works for somebody else and starts the company for whatever reason, or they're like a sales rep and they're like, man, I can absolutely go start my own roofing, HVAC, painting company because I know everything. And then they get over there and start selling, and then they're like, where's the money going? They don't realize that you have to sell at certain margins in order to cover all of those things. And so if you don't know those numbers in the beginning, you're just going on a hamster wheel.
Yeah. You got to track it as much as possible. Yeah, for me, I'm labor based. You know, that's it. Yeah. So it's all cost per hour. Yeah, that's the only way I get paid, and that's what I track. I track hours. How many hours are we in the field? How many people are called out this week? Yep. How many lost? That's lost wages. Yeah. So
absolutely. Yeah. No, that I think the financial piece is it doesn't matter what industry you're in. Like you got to know your numbers. You got to understand like where you're trying to go as well. I think a lot of times people always are like, man, I want to grow. It's like, for the sake of what? Like, what is going to do for you? What is it going to do for your company? And if you don't, I talked to a lot of contractors who are like, man, we 2x'd what we did last year, but we actually lost more money, or we actually lost money in general. It's like, okay, well then something isn't
systems
adding
aren't
up.
in place.
Systems aren't in place, finances aren't in place. So like bigger isn't always better.
No, lean and mean. That's what I did for 10 years was lean and mean. I was lean and mean, and now I'm like, okay, we can start spending a little bit more. So lean and mean, and just basically figuring out how to going from being a technician to a manager is extremely hard. Yeah. And if you're a manager, you don't know what the techs are doing. No. Like if you hadn't done it, but it's so hard to become a manager. Yeah. It's insanely hard. It is. Yeah. I think that Simon guy has something about, we promote the best to be managers, and like, I don't know how to manage.
Yeah, no, it's like, that's not necessarily the easiest thing to do. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. So as we kind of wrap up the episode here today, I want to always kind of talk about like what, obviously we talked about your past, what you have going on right now, but like, what are your goals for the future? What are you currently working on personally in the business? What does that look like?
Personally, I just want to get in shape. I want to feel healthy every day. That's the main point. I can't be on point for the business if I don't physically feel well or mentally. So that's been the biggest thing personally. And then professionally, I would just like to have, I'd just like to see where this is going, to be honest with you. I have goals, but getting over, getting to 10 techs. So I'm big on core of fours. So I want a core of four out in the field that run the rest of the technicians. Sure. That's the painters. And then I'd like a core of four in the office, managing the day-to-day and making sure all the things that I'm not getting to are getting done, because I'm the fixer. I put out the fires. Yeah. So I'll go put out fires while you guys just run the systems. Stuff. Yep. Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm working on right now. And you obviously got to have enough technicians out there to support that staff. Yeah. So that's awesome. That's the biggest thing right now.
Love it. Oh, I'm excited to continue to see you guys continue to grow. Appreciate your business, and thanks so much for coming in today.
No, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, I love it. Tell us so that way we can put it in the show notes. Where can people get connected with you and your company?
Yeah, I'm really bad promoter. Okay, really bad at the marketing stuff.
We're gonna promote the heck out of this episode.
So brspainting.com is our website. You can follow us on Instagram. I think we've got like 37,000 followers on Instagram, which is kind of cool. Yeah, it's awesome. Twitter or X, Facebook, obviously, all those places. Yeah, it's pretty easy. BRS Painting.
Yeah. Well, we'll put that all in the show notes. We're going to promote the heck out of it. So thanks again for coming in, man.
One last thing. Yeah. BRS stands for brush roll spray. Okay. It's not my initials.
Good. All right. That's a good piece there. But thanks so much for coming in, man.
Not a problem, Adam. Thank you.
And I want to thank you again to the audience for tuning in to today's podcast. Please be sure to subscribe, download, and share our content. Leaving a 5-star review goes a long way. We'll see you all next week. And remember, entrepreneurs aren't born, they are brewed.
I'm an entrepreneur. Entrepreneurs aren't born, they're brewed. Thank you for listening to Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, Adam McChesney. Let's